two marketing classes on Thursday. One is direct business discussion, and then the second one in the afternoon is the standard marketing class. And of course, on Friday, get ready for Amy Seitz. She's back this Friday with Run Away with Amy. She'll be reviewing how to format on a RON platform, POA, AKA, FKA, NKA signature lines. And Ronnie, if you can pin Samantha up on the screen, I'll try to give her a proper introduction here. So Miss Samantha, also known as the paperwork and errand lady, is a business owner providing individual tax preparation, mobile notary and loan signing services, legal document preparation, and more. The list is this long, guys. The paperwork and errand lady has been in business since April 2014 and began as a side gig for her to assist seniors with online needs and running errands. A networking meeting, of all things, pay attention here, led Samantha to Notary to Pro training, and certifications and services were added from there. Samantha has a background in loan processing, real estate, and nonprofits. She holds a BA in psychology from San Diego State. You cannot break me. Don't try to shrink me. She's been a commissioned California notary since 2002. She is registered as a legal document assistant and has been a registered tax preparer since 2014. And all of these ands in here, most recently became an enrolled agent, the highest credential awarded by the IRS. One of Samantha's top priorities is tax education, as everybody has to file taxes, but few know how income taxes work. Maybe one day her dream of requiring high school tax courses will come true. All right, Mr. Ronnie, tell me to stop talking and we'll get Samantha pinned up here and she can start her presentation.
All right, I think she is pinned up, Miss Samantha. I just want to I can see Miss Carol and Glory Junkman. Can you guys see Miss Samantha pinned on the screen there? Nope. Let's
look pinned. How about if I share? Let's see if it's going to let me share. Oh, maybe I can get my slides up. Now, can you see my slides?
Here we go.
That look good?
Perfect.
Wonderful. So we can go with that. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Beth. I sound so good on paper, man. I don't think I'm that good in person, but thanks for the great introduction. I don't want to take too much time doing anything else, but just jumping right into it. I think I have about 20 minutes and I collected a lot of information for you guys. So I'd love to just get through it and let you know what's going on in the tax world. This is probably the #1 issue we see. So every time I visit, I talk about notarial fees. We think of them as signatures here in California. Yours might be stamps in another state. It's whatever your state allows for you to charge as your official notary duty. So in California, $15 per signature. Some of the states close to me, I think it's $10 per stamp. That part you can exclude from self-employment income. And so you're going to include it in your actual income. You are then on a Schedule SE going to remove the part that is for signatures, not your travel, not, paper and pens and any supplies above and beyond, but just for whatever your state allows for your notarial income. I've had lots of questions, especially from this class, asking me for the section number. So I actually wanted to post it here today. If your tax preparer can't figure out why your notarial income can be excluded, it is section 1402 C2E of the IRC, the Internal Revenue Code. So that is where they can look to find that information. You can also look on the Schedule SE instructions, and the information is actually there as well. The other one I wanted to talk about that I don't talk about much because it's pretty automatic, but you should know this. So as business owners, we pay lots of taxes. We pay our federal, our state, and our self-employment tax, which is what we were just talking about. So the government came up with this QBI as part of the Tax Cuts and Job Act. I think that was 2017, where they give us 20% of our business income is like taken as a deduction up front. So if you made $100,000, they'll take $20,000 off of that before they calculate your taxes. And that's just to help small business owners. There is something special for us. We do fall into this specified service, trade, or business category. And what that means is if you get up to income, not just business income, but overall income between W-2 job, your spouse, whatever, as a single person, you can get up to $191,950. This goes up just a little bit each year, or $383,900 as a married couple before you start losing that 20% deduction. This is important because you want to make sure that your tax preparer knows that you fall into this SSTB category if you are a business owner and you get up into these higher income levels. That SSTB specified service trade is actually listed as involving the performance of services in fields of, and it gives a big long list, where the principal asset is the reputation or skill or one or more of its employees. And so that's why we fall in this category, right? Our business is based on our skills and us knowing what we're doing. And so that's where it starts to taper off there. Like I said, this is part of the Tax Cuts and Job Act of 2017, which is set to expire in 2025. So we get this year and next year, and if Congress is unable to pass an extension or permanence of this bill, we will lose everything that came along with TCJA. So TCJA covers a couple of things. These aren't necessarily related to notaries, but to everybody across the country. So I just wanted to bring it up. It did almost double the standard deduction. And what that means is a lot of people stopped having to write off their houses, right? We still bring it in, but your mortgage interest, your mortgage taxes, your medical bills, all of that, lots of people used to write that off because the standard deduction was like $10,000. Now the standard deduction for a married couple is close to $30,000. What that means is, based on how you file taxes, they take some money off of your income before calculating your taxes. This is how we get your tax liability down. So again, this is part of TCJA. If it's not extended, come 2027, when we do taxes, we're going to see a big hit in our pocketbooks. So it's kind of something to keep an eye on. The other thing that TCJA covers is the child tax credit. The credit for having children under 17 went from $1,000 to $2,000. It also made $1,400 of it refundable. So it used to be most of it could just cover your taxes. If you had $1,000 in taxes, your $1,000 child tax credit could cover that $1,000. But what happens for extremely low income people who don't have $1,000 that they have to pay in taxes? They just lost that credit. So what this act did is actually made it so it could be up to $1,400 back into your pocket for each of those children. So that was another great part of the TCJA. A couple of the not so great parts, especially here in California, it limits our SALT, which is state and local taxes, to $10,000. Big deal for Californians when we tend to have, $5,000 to $10,000 in property tax a year. So we tend to lose some of the taxes that we can write off. It also capped our mortgage interest at $750,000. So if you have $1 million home, which is very common here in Southern California, we have to reduce how much of your interest you can write off on your house. Finally, the other good thing, the corporate tax rate was reduced from 35% to a flat 21%, and that actually does not expire with TCJA. That is permanent as of now. So kind of something to keep your eye on in the news in the coming years. Earned income tax credit, another credit that applies to everybody. You always want to be making sure that your tax preparer is looking at this credit for you. A lot of people think you can only get this if you have children. That is not true. It is much lower if you don't have children, and the income limits are much lower. But it is a huge boost for lower middle class Americans. This is usually people who are working minimum wage jobs full time. This is a boost that the government gives them for holding down those minimum wage jobs and being able to still survive, and just kind of helps out. So you can see like a family with 2 children, maybe a married couple with 2 children, they can make up to $62,000 and still get some of this $6,960 maximum credit. They're not going to get all of it if they're towards the top of that. So the way the earned income tax credit works is it's a bell curve. The more you make, the more you get. And then at some point you hit a sweet spot and it starts tapering off again until you reach the limit of the income. So this is a really cool credit to keep your eye on if you are within any of these income ranges. This is also one of the reasons that small business owners are kind of instantly red flagged. Not that we are going to get audited, but small business owners are lower, because there are people out in the world that make up income just to qualify for this credit so that they can get money back from the government. So when your tax preparer asks you for proof of business or a business license, it's because they're doing their due diligence so that we don't get in trouble for making up numbers and making people qualify for this credit. So that's a little bit of tax deductions and credits. Common tax oversights in our industry. Estimated payments. I know nobody likes paying taxes when tax season rolls around, but did you know you can be fined if you owe a lot of taxes come tax season? Because the government doesn't want their money February, March, April. They want their money throughout the year. So if you owe more than $1,000 at the end of the season when you do your tax return, they actually can fine you. The first year you're in business or the first year you owe, you will get an exemption because you didn't know. You do it 2 years in a row, you will get a bill. After you pay your taxes, a bill will come in the mail asking you to pay the penalty for underpayment of taxes. Hence estimated payments. So let's say this year your tax liability is $6,000. Maybe you had some money taken out of your check, so you paid a little bit less, but your tax liability, what you actually put into the IRS system, was $6,000. Next year, the government is going to expect you to pay at least $6,000 before tax season in order to avoid penalties. So this is something you really want to hang out and talk to your tax preparer after. They may not do it during tax season because everybody's running. But if they're not able to do it during tax season, you want to set something up probably in summer to go over what you think you're going to make, what you think you're going to owe, and set up some estimated payments. For those who are in California, we have the same thing. California will actually fine you if you owe more than $500. So it's something to keep in mind that your state may also charge you a penalty in addition to your taxes and anything the IRS might charge. The other one is mingling personal and business funds. Really something to be careful with. It's not as important for most of us as sole proprietors. Once you go into corporations, if you've incorporated, you ever heard of piercing the corporate veil? That is literally all about commingling your personal and your business funds. Once you do that, you lose the protection of your corporation. So if you think of an LLC, if you didn't make any election to pay corporate taxes, an LLC has nothing to do with taxes. It has everything to do with protection. If you start commingling your stuff, now you're kind of piercing that corporate veil and you're diminishing the whole purpose of the LLC. So you want to be really careful about not using your business card for personal and getting the money mixed up there. The other big one I see is small business owners don't realize that they need to issue 1099 NECs. If you work with any non-corporate person or business providing services and you pay them more than $600, you are required to issue them a 1099 NEC. So what's an example of that? Easy one, not your side, usually the other side, but a signing service. If a signing service pays you more than $600, regardless of whether or not you get the 1099, you do have to report that income, but they can be fined if they don't issue you the 1099 NEC that they're supposed to by January 31st. I actually, for the first time ever, something happened and it got off my radar and I didn't issue my own 1099 NECs to my people, and I will be fined $120 because I was a week late sending out 2 1099 NECs. So the fines are very high. And they go up every month that you're late. So you want to make sure that these are getting issued. My example, I have 2 that I issue every year. One is I work with somebody to do apostilles, and I send them clients or I send them documents, and they go and walk them into the Secretary of State and then mail it back to me. I always pay my contact more than $600 a year. She is not a corporation, and therefore I have to issue her a 1099. I also have somebody that comes in and cleans my home office because I never find the time to do it. And so I'm required as a business expense, hiring an independent contractor to issue them a 1099 as well. Something else to keep in mind is misclassifying independent contractors as versus employees. So there are very, very strict guidelines on who's an independent contractor and who is an employee. Generally, if you have control over what that person does, if you set their, if you provide their equipment, you are an employer, you cannot give them a 1099 cash income. I see this a lot, like maybe you will hire a scheduler or a receptionist and you're like, well, they work from home and I'm just gonna, pay them whenever I pay them. If you're setting their work hours and you are providing the equipment and you are training them and telling them how to do their job, you are an employer and required to list them as a W-2 employee. Why do a lot of people don't do that? As an employer, you end up paying more taxes. That self-employment tax we talked about for Social Security and Medicare, instead of them paying 100% of it, you have to pay half, they have to pay half. So and then you have to hire payroll and you have to deposit taxes. It does make it more complicated, but it's not a choice. There are very clear guidelines as to who is an employee. Just to give you a visual, I like to put this up. Notarial fees are included for federal taxes. They are included for state taxes. If your state has a tax, they may be excluded from self-employment tax, which is Social Security and Medicare. Please remember, you cannot just go through your journal at the end of the year and add up all your signatures. You actually have to do it for every single signing. This is a great example. If you had a loan signing for $100 and there were 4 signatures, in California at $15 a signature, $60 would be excludable, $40 would be considered my travel and printing, and that would be, I would pay self-employment tax on that. The entire $100 goes in my income. I see this all the time. People are, I'm a notary, my income is not taxable, I get to exclude it all from my income. That's not how it works. Every dollar you make is part of your income. Your notarial fees can be excluded from self-employment tax only. And the reason I say you have to calculate per signing is because what if you had a $100 fee and there were 10 signatures? Now, if I did 10 times 15, that's $150. What happens to that other $50? You just lose it. It's not, you don't get to take $50 off of your self-employment tax for another signing. You can only count up to what you got for that one signing. So of this $100 fee, $100 is taxable for federal and state, and $100 comes off for self-employment tax. You can't add that extra 50. So what can you do to simplify tax filing time? Ongoing record and or recording and organization. This is your bookkeeping. Bookkeeping is not a tax preparation activity. It is actually something that needs to be done throughout the year, and you are responsible for it, or you hire somebody to do it. I highly suggest proving out. I worked in finances like at a very young age at a cash checking place, and we always had to prove out our drawer. You should prove out your signings. Go through your journal, make sure you didn't forget to put anything in your software or your spreadsheet or whatever you're using. Make sure you're counting the signatures and how much of that fee you can exclude. And I would recommend doing that weekly. If you can only do it monthly, that's okay too. But I wouldn't do it at the end of the year for the whole year because you are going to hate tax season. Also, a pro tip I like to tell people, when you put it into your software, include descriptions of what's on the receipt. And if your software allows it, scan the receipt into your software, and then you can throw the receipt away. What you cannot do is use your bank statements. Your bank statements does not give an itemized list of what you purchased. So just because you went to Office Depot and made a $500 purchase, how do we know you didn't buy $500 of candy at Office Depot? You have to have an itemized receipt that actually shows what you purchased and that it's allowable expense for your business. You do not need to keep a hard copy. You can scan it and keep a digital copy, but you do need to have an actual receipt. And then finally, again, keep your business and personal expenses separate. Know what's allowable. Maybe have a category somewhere that's like other or need help if you don't know if something's allowable, so you can talk to your tax pro about it. I put some publications in here that you can review to learn about bookkeeping and running a business and what you should know. Publications are IRS plain English books that kind of translate law into plain English. So all of these publications would be very helpful for you. Stay organized and on top of your financial records weekly or monthly. I promise you it will make your life so much easier. If you do it every week, you remember exactly what happened that week. If you do it at the end of the month, it takes a lot more brain power to figure out what you did that week. And don't wait until the last minute. Notarial work is cyclical. We are usually slow in December and January, right? Anybody who's been in this business more than a year or two knows that that winter period tends to be a slow period. Take that time to get ready for your tax preparer. Get your books in order, go through your bank account, make sure you didn't miss anything. And finally, as a way to turn it over to Steve, my big thing is use the bookkeeping software. It's not that expensive. The notarial ones are set just for us. They figure out your signatures for you. They have categories already set up for your expenses so that you can kind of figure out what you can and can't include. So I highly recommend having something that keeps all your stuff together, and you could spit out a profit and loss if you want to go apply for a loan. Super easy, as long as you're staying on top of everything. That is my spiel for today. I think I did right at 20 minutes, somewhere close to that. So I will turn it back over to you guys, and thank you so much for having me again.
You do have a few questions here, Samantha. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for a great presentation. I know taxes and accounting is boring stuff unless you're a total nerd like Samantha, right? She is all about the money, all about the dollars, all about the numbers, but it has to be done. So keeping up with it weekly, balancing monthly, and then hiring a bookkeeper at the end of the year to go through everything and make sure it's ready for your tax accountant is the perfect way to fly. Daisy, did you want to unmute and ask your question to Samantha?
Yes, thank you. Hi, Samantha. So if a signing service pays me less than $600 in the year, do they report that?
They are not required to issue a 1099. You are still required to report the income.
Yes, got that part, but they don't.
They
If they're
can.
not required, might they report it?
They might, yeah, but they are not required to.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Perfect. She wants to know if she can get away with that claiming it. No. Daisy, just kidding you.
Don't tell the preparer. If we hear it, it's fraud if we don't report it. So I don't want no.
Mr. Mark, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Hello, Samantha. I have a last year I ended up paying quarterly because of the previous year. And does the government send me a form to include, or do I just need to add up the 4 receipt things that I have that I know I paid?
You just provide your preparer the dates and the amounts of each payment, and then that gets put into your tax return.
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Good question. Thanks, Mark. Urania, you are up next.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, awesome. Good evening. I have a 2-part question. So I record everything using Notary Gadget because it works better for me, especially, the signings, notarizations, mileage, etc., any expenses. And I use that as a means to file taxes, but I also get a 1099 from one of the services that I do a certain amount over each year. Now, with it already being recorded in Notary Gadget and the 1099, how does that work?
So if you do good bookkeeping, you can almost completely ignore the 1099s.
Okay.
So when we do taxes, we can put in each individual 1099, but the only thing the IRS is going to receive from me as a preparer when I electronically file your return is your Schedule C. They're not going to see every one of those 1099s that I put in. They'd see
Gotcha.
every 1099 that you received, because when that signing service sends a copy to you, they also send a copy to the IRS. So the IRS knows it exists, but it doesn't need to be individually listed on your tax return. What you need is overall total income for the year, cash, 1099s, any means that you received is all going to go into one lump sum on the Schedule C.
Okay, awesome. And then the second part was you mentioned that when it comes down to taxes, we're to pay it quarterly. And if you haven't, you get a penalty. And so let's say within this current tax year, let's say somebody hasn't did that and they pay IRS, they pay those, whatever it is they owe. Is the penalty still high, or how does that work?
So it's a percentage of what you owe. And so let's say your goal is to pay 90% of your tax liability from last year. No matter how much you owe this year, as long as you pay 90 to 110%, depending on your income level, of what your tax liability is from last year, then you will not be penalized. So let's say last year you had a $2,000 penalty, you had a $2,000 tax liability. This year you put no money in because you left your W-2 job and you're now working as a notary. There is a chance that we may not be able to get you out of the penalty if you didn't pay at least the $2,000 from last year.
Okay.
So they want to see that you're paying as much taxes this year as you knew you had last year, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So last year you knew you had to pay $2,000. This year you should put in at least $2,000, and then if you owe more, you didn't know about it. So it's very, you want to talk to a tax pro about it so that they can figure out with you how much you should send, because there are actually deadlines. It's not like, let me just send in some money every few months and I'll be fine. If it's not in by April 15th, June 15th, September 15th, and January 15th, you can be penalized for any one of those quarters.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't happen unless you're audited, but it can happen.
All right. I'll talk to her. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So Samantha, I'm going to put you on hold for a moment, and those who have their hands up in the gallery, if you want to hang on, we want to make sure that we have saving enough time for Steve to get in his portion of the presentation tonight. And I'm sure some of your questions for Samantha, if she'll stick around, we can get to those, as well as questions for Steve once he's finished. So let me see what we know about Mr. Steve. Mr. Mickle, if you could pin Steve up for me. Steve Bjorkman is the CEO and founder of Notary Gadget, the ultimate software for notaries. Steve founded his company over 10 years ago with the simple idea to operate a simple accounting software for notaries. That also can be translated as bookkeeping software, guys. So accounting and bookkeeping in this instance on this level means the same thing, okay? Which eventually evolved into a manage your entire notary business software. This is what's exciting about Notary Gadget, okay? One of Steve's newest features that I think they rolled out last year was a built-in electronic journal as well. So Steve, if you are ready, go ahead and unmute and let's see what you can show us here.
And we all want to know your secret to never aging, because you look exactly the same as the last two guys you presented here. So you gotta give us that sauce too today.
Yeah.
Poor lighting. Poor lighting is the trick. Really bad lighting. Nighttime on the East Coast, it shades everything. That or a really bad camera on my laptop. My laptop's ironically, it's a really nice laptop, obviously because I do development, but it's still probably 5 or 6 years old, which in laptop terms is actually pretty old. So maybe it's the camera, the lighting, a little bit of both. Well, thanks for having me, first of all. I appreciate it. Always love being on here and sharing things with you guys. So what I had kind of planned was just to put on the screen to do, it's kind of a pre-recorded demo. I try to go through it as fast as I can on the demo, so it's not in crazy long, but it is a little bit long. So just kind of bear with it. But there is a lot of good, useful information, especially if you've never used Notary Gadget. And even sometimes, as many of you know, you're on here and you're like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. And it's part of the video too, is because Notary Gadget really does so many different things. It does all of your accounting stuff, but then it merges it with managing all of the day-to-day operations of you being a notary and everything else. And I think, as many of you, I'm sure on here probably already use Notary Gadget, obviously one just here a minute ago, but yeah, I saw a comment too. Somebody said, love Notary Gadget in there. So I love hearing that stuff too. It really does make my day. It's all of us here. It really does make our day. But let me get started and I'll share that and then we'll get going. And then you guys can ask any questions you might have. Sec. There is mine. So give me a sec. I might have to get the audio working right. I remember last time it was a little tricky. We do. Screen, share sound. All right, can you guys see that?
Major features and benefits that Notary Gadget has and how they are going to help you. Now, by no means is this a complete and comprehensive demonstration of all the things that Notary Gadget can do, because there's so many different things that it can do that it would take much more time than this demo would be, and a lot of that stuff applies to some users and doesn't apply to other users. So I'm going to try to hit on just the major points that I think will affect most people. So to get started, when you first log into Notary Gadget, it's going to put you on the home page, and the home page is designed to give you kind of a 40,000 foot view of what's going on in your notary world. So the first thing you're going to notice over here is a list of colorful boxes, and these boxes represent things or tasks that need to be completed in Realties or in Notary Gadget. So for example, the first one's going to give you, hey, how many upcoming signings you have, how many invoices have you not sent yet, how many signings do you have where you have not entered in your mileage, how many do you have where you have not entered in your notarial acts? And we're going to talk a little bit more about this later because this is such a big deal. It can save you thousands of dollars on your taxes. And it's crazy because there's so many notaries that just aren't aware of it. And even a lot of their accountants aren't aware of it. So if you're not aware of it and then you don't tell your accountant and they're not aware of it, then you could really be missing out on thousands. And in some cases, if you're really busy, even tens of thousands of dollars in tax savings that you're going to end up paying that you don't have to pay for. So and then you have another one over here that's the signing fees of $0. So this is when you have a signing and you don't know what the amount is going to be, but you know it's coming up, so you just put in a $0. So it's just a reminder for you to actually update that amount. And then it's going to tell you how many signings you have that are unpaid within 0 to 30 days, 31 to 60 days, and signings that are 60 days plus where you have not been paid for. So that's kind of give you like your task list. Now over to the right is going to give you a little bit more of a summary of what your volume of signings have looked like. So in this particular account, because it's a demo account and I just logged in, it's going to default to the last 10 weeks because it's a new account that I just created. Now, normally once you've used it for a while, it's going to automatically go to the current year that you're in, and it's going to show you the volume that you've done for each month. So for example, if I switch this to 2024, you're going to see that it's going to show you how many signings that I've done. And you can switch from, the number of signings to the amount of signings. So you can kind of give a good idea of how much money of revenue. So when I mean revenue, I mean just income or how much dollars in signings that you've done. It doesn't mean your profit. It just means, hey, this is how much, if I added up the total I was paid or that I should be paid for all of those signings that I did, this is how much it would be. So it's important to understand too that this does not include, this is not the amount of money you have received. It's just the amount of money you should receive for signings you did during that time frame. So as you can see here, it's going to give me a quick summary stats here. And if I move my mouse over, it'll kind of explain in detail, but basically 12 signings. This is how much money I've done in signings. This is my actual profit, assuming that I actually get paid for all of those signings. And it's going to give me an average profit per signing. So great statistics. Again, just kind of give you that 40,000 foot overview. Now, the signings page, I'm going to come here in a minute. The signings page is where you're going to spend 99% of your time because that's where you're going to go in and you're going to manage your signings. And the system is, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, but the system is designed around trying to keep you focused on things that you need to do on each of your signings. So we'll spend a little bit more time there, but you have a calendar page, and on the calendar page, it's going to basically give you a calendar view of your signings, and you can add events and do that sort of thing. Won't spend a whole lot of time here. It's pretty simple. It's basically like a calendar system that you would have in any one of your email clients or what have you. Now, the nice part too, and you'll see this, is that when you add a signing inside of Notary Gadget, it will automatically add it to the calendar on your phone, or if you're using like Outlook, your Outlook calendar, or what have you. And then if you go to expenses, this is where you're going to log all of your general expenses. So things like your phone bill and office supplies and advertising, licensing, all that kind of stuff, like your general overall expenses. Anything that's related to a particular signing, you're going to enter that under that particular signing. And it's important to do that because what we're going to ultimately try to do is look at, hey, what's the average profit that we're making on each signing? And what's the average profit per customer? So we can tell which customers are good customers, i.e. they pay us a lot of money per signing, or which ones are the bad ones where you're barely making any money on it. And that will give you the sort of data that you need to determine whether you should continue doing signings for any given customer. And then here you can also enter in other income that you have, so miscellaneous income. If you have an interest-bearing account, if you're doing some sort of other side business, you can actually enter it in here as well. And then you also have, and I want to point out real quick on the expenses page, you can also set up recurring transactions. So these are things that will automatically get added to your account. So if you pay, say, a flat rate for your phone every month, you can set up a recurring transaction so that the system will automatically add that expense for you every month, so you don't have to go in and type it in every time. And it's important too, don't forget that we do have a mobile app. So inside of the mobile app, you can do things like scan your receipts. You can even use like a voice to text description of what the expense is, and it will automatically fill in the categories and everything. It's pretty cool. It's a great automation tool. And then another important thing is you can edit your categories. So the categories that we set you up with are just a general set of categories to start you off with, and you'll see that here. But you can completely customize them and create your own and whatnot. There's a couple of them that are protected that you can't mess with because those are things that you have to record a certain way for taxes and whatnot. And then you have a host of reports, which we'll spend a few minutes on later on here, but a bunch of different reports to, again, try to give you the most amount of information. And most importantly, of all the reports, is probably the profit and loss report, because that's what you're going to use for taxes. And it's going to give your accountant exactly what they need in order to do your taxes. And more importantly, or even just as important, is that it's going to put on there the amount of income that you had from your notarial acts. And that's huge, because that is what is going to save you so much money on your taxes. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. And then you have a settings page. So in the settings page, you can customize so many different things inside of Notary Gadget. It's really designed to be customized to the way that you do business. So that if you need a setting and you want to change something, odds are you can probably change it on this page. And then we also have a huge library of videos. So if you click on the help icon, you can ask a question. And in here, you can type in whatever your question was. Like say it was something about invoice. So you start typing in your question, and it's going to pull up a bunch of different videos that are based on those keywords. And then it gives you a walkthrough, and you can actually, like, for example, if I wanted to show how to create an invoice, that one's just a page there. But if I wanted to try not to do like my invoice settings, you can actually minimize it, and you can watch it while you're actually going in here and running around inside the software, doing exactly what the video says. So it'll stay up and kind of guide you right along as it goes. And then if you need to change anything under your My Account, you have a My Account section in here. You can change your email, your password, subscriptions, so on and so forth. So without further ado, I'm going to jump right into the signings page, because like I said, this is where we're going to spend 99% of the time. So a couple of important things. So the idea and the whole concept behind Notary Gadget, like I had said, is to keep you focused on the things that need to be done in each signing. And the way that we do that is we use these little alert icons. And what this means is when an alert icon is colorful, it means that something needs to be done on that signing. When it's grayed out like this, it either doesn't need to be done or you have already completed it. So for example, here's a good one. So if you look at my signings that I have listed here, it's going to show that I have 4 paid signings. So in these signings, I have not entered in my mileage or any of these ones. This blue here means that it's an upcoming status. So all of these ones have already occurred, and it's giving me a status of, hey, is it unpaid or is it paid, whatnot. So when I want to go in and I want to enter in my mileage, for example, I would just click on the mileage icon. It's going to automatically calculate the one-way and round trip mileage to and from the signing from your home address. And when you do, it's going to, you can either click the use button to use the one-way or the round trip, and you just click use, and it will automatically fill those in. And if you do have a signing, for example, it was remote or a RON signing or something like that, then you can always click that I did not have any mileage for this signing. But in general, it's going to automatically do this. You're going to click save. It's going to automatically record the mileage at the then IRS rate that you're allowed to deduct your mileage at. So, and this is a very interesting part, because a lot of new notaries always want to write off their gas, and they want to write off their car expenses and whatnot. So inside of Notary Gadget, it uses what's called the IRS standard mileage rate. And the IRS standard mileage rate is a rate that the IRS says, hey, you can write off this amount per mile for any business miles that you drive. And right now, I think it's around 60 cents or something like that. I don't know the exact rate, but it's automatically updated inside of Notary Gadget. But what it does is it's going to calculate what that is, and then it's going to report it on that profit and loss report, which is what you're going to use for your taxes. So it's going to make sure that you maximize the deduction that you get. And generally speaking, the mileage rate usually gives you a better write-off than trying to deduct the actual expenses against your car. And people say, well, yeah, but I spent a bunch of, I got my car payments, my insurance, and all this other stuff. What a lot of times they don't realize is that you have to prorate that based on the business portion of your miles that you drive per year. So for example, if you drove 20,000 miles this year and 10,000 of them were business and 10,000 of them were personal, you only get to write off half of the amount of car expenses that you would have. Whereas if you're using the mileage rate, it's just based on per mile. So that if you drove 10,000 miles, which should be pretty normal and probably even low for a lot of notaries, you're going to get a business write-off of that. Let's just say it was 60 cents. That's going to be a $6,000 write-off that you're going to get to claim on your taxes. Now, you don't get to deduct your gas or anything else. The only thing you can deduct in addition to when you use the mileage rate is parking and tolls. And We have a bunch of videos that explain all this stuff, so on and so forth. But that's how you go through and you basically enter in your mileage rate. So the next thing I'm going to do is you have this other icon, which is a stamper icon, which is entering in your notarial acts. And like I said, this is so important. And we've got a, what are notarial acts and why you should track them. And this is kind of gives you a quick overview of it is. But I'm going to try to go through this real quick because I don't want it to streamline away from the demo too much. But basically what happens is when you are self-employed, you have to pay something called self-employment tax, which is 15.3%. So all self-employed people pay this amount. And what it's designed to do is it's designed to replace the Social Security and Medicare that's normally taken out of your check when you're an employee. And what a lot of people don't realize is when you're an employee and you have those amounts removed from your check, the company actually has to match that same amount. And it's to the tune of 7.65%, which is exactly half of 15.3%. So what the IRS says is basically, hey, you're self-employed. So when you're self-employed, you're sort of like half employee and half owner. So what they do is they kind of double ding you for it. And now you, instead of paying Social Security and Medicare, you have to pay twice the amount, half of it for that would normally get taken out of your check. And since you're also the self-employed, i.e. the company as well, then you have to match that amount. So now here's the good part. Notaries have this tax benefit where if any amount of income that you have that's from notarial acts is not subject to self-employment tax. So essentially what this does is it basically gives you a pass to claim a portion of your income exempt from self-employment tax. So that's a savings of 15.3%. So this kind of gives you a quick overview example here. So let's say, for example, you do a signing for $100. Now let's say that in your state you can charge $10 per notarial act. Now this is going to be different for every state. But if that were the case, then, and during that signing, you completed 4 notarial acts. That gives you a total of $40 in notarial fees, which means that $40 of that 100 is not subject to self-employment tax. So basically, in this particular case, $40 times 15.3% that you would normally have to pay self-employment tax on means that you won't have to pay $6.12 that you would normally have had to pay. So now if you add this up, to give you a real world example, let's say, for example, you make $40,000 this year doing signings. At 15.3%, that's about $6,000 in taxes that you would normally have to pay that you don't have to pay anymore because it's from notarial acts, assuming that it was entirely of notarial acts. And in most cases, your notarial acts will usually cover the full amount of the income that you get from signings or from your notarial acts. Now, it's important to understand too that this goes against your net income. And what net income means is net income is your total income minus your expenses. So don't forget, you get to write off your mileage and everything else. So essentially what happens is all of your net profit in most cases ends up being almost completely exempt from self-employment tax, but it only is if you're tracking the number of notarial acts, because if you're not, there's no way to calculate how that is done. So it's really important. Like I said, a lot of accountants don't know it, a lot of notaries don't know it, and we can talk a little bit about this later on, but it's one of the most important things is making sure that your accountant is aware of it, because if they are not, then it's a really big deal, because you're potentially losing thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars in tax, in taxes that you should not be paying. And we have a nice video about that too. If you just come over here and you type the ask a question and just type in notarial act, the first video right here, overview of notarial acts, how you track them and how it will save you money on your taxes. It's a whole video that explains basically what I just said, but it's really important. So if there's one thing you get out of this demo, make sure you go in and after you open up your account, go in there and watch that video, because it really will save you a ton of money. So anyway, but getting back to here, so this is how you're going to record it. So like I use that example, let's just say I had 4 notarial acts on here and my amount per act is $10. I hit save, and the system, the first time I enter it in, is going to say, hey, do you want to use $10 as the default amount per notarial act in the future? So I'm going to say yes, because in my state, I'm allowed to do $10 per notarial act. Now, if you'll notice, that signing has actually disappeared from our view here, because by default, the view or the filter that's set up here is set to unpaid or has an alert. So it's only going to show me the signings that have not been paid for, or there's some sort of alert or some kind of task that I have to complete on it. Again, the whole idea behind Notary Gadget is that it keeps you focused on the stuff that you need to do. It's not going to show you things if it's already done. And you can always change this filter here, and you can go to all signings, or you can pick any one of these numerous filters that we have here to show. But again, the idea is trying to keep you focused. It's trying to keep you streamlined and trying to make things as easy and automated as possible. Now, the way that you obviously get your signings into here is you click the new signing button. Before I jump into there though, there's a couple different ways you can get a signing into here. So one, you can manually enter it in, which is the most tedious, probably inefficient way that you can do it. And the other method is you can actually import your signings. And the way that it does it is we have an automatic importer. So what you do is you forward your order confirmation emails that you would get from like signing companies or SnapDocs or SnapCount, so on and so forth, or SnapDocs or signing order or any signing companies, title companies, what have you. And you forward them into automation@notarygadget.com. And what the system will do is it will automatically grab all of the information that it can from that, and then it pulls it into like an importing queue. And that's what you're seeing up here is this red button where it says import. So when I click import, it's going to give me a list of all the ones that I have queued up, and I just simply click the import button, and it's going to automatically pull all of that information into the new signing form. And then you can go in here and you can make adjustments accordingly. So then you're going to go in here. So the first section here is you're going to have your customer, which is a list of your customers. So you get your own personalized customer list. You can create new ones, edit, add. The system, when you're doing an import, will automatically try to find your customer based on what signing platform or signing customer it came in from. And then you're going to go over here, and then it has all the signing information, the signer information. And then you can add a second signer. It has a autofill here too. So if this were 3459 Monday, it'll automatically pull an autofill address in there. But in this case, it actually pulled it straight from the order that was forwarded in. And any other additional information, special instructions, so on and so forth. And it'll pull in the signing date and time. And if you'll notice, I have this checkbox here that says add to my Google Calendar. So what I can do now is I can add this to my calendar, and when I click save, it's going to automatically add that appointment to my Google Calendar. And then if my Google Calendar is synced with my phone, which 99% of the time it is, it's going to automatically add that same appointment to my phone. And the same thing works, like even if you have an Outlook calendar or what have you, you can set up a Google Calendar, which is free. And then what you do is you just link your Outlook calendar to your Google Calendar, and the same with your phone. And then when it adds it to the Google Calendar, it adds it to the Outlook calendar or any other calendar that you have synced with the Google Calendar. So we kind of use Google Calendar as what like the intermediary that that's going to be used to sync everything. But 5% of our users use Gmail and Google Calendar. So it really is a great thing, and it adds everything right there. And it'll have all the details of the signing and all that stuff. And again, don't forget, we got a mobile app too. So you'll be able to pull up everything from your mobile app. So even, if you're using Outlook or what have you, you can still pull up everything and log all this stuff, and everything that we're doing here, you can do all of that stuff on the mobile app. The only thing the mobile app doesn't have is the reports, because it's designed more for a computer screen than a phone. So in here, I can set up a reminder. I can say, hey, I want to get a reminder 2 hours before this, and I can say, hey, do I want an email reminder, or do I want a text message reminder? If I do want text message, I got to enable text messaging, which will be a process for it. This is a demo account, so I'm not going to enable it now, but it'll actually send you a text message. Now, also, you can set up an email reminder for the signer. So this is a nice template. So you can say, hey, I want the system will automatically send an email to my signer, however often or however much before the signing. And you can even edit the template, and you can use these different variables in here. So you can completely customize the email that's going to go out. Now, it comes from appointment reminders at notarygadget.com, but when they hit reply, it's going to go back to your email address. So this is a really, really great tool to set up. So I'll go ahead and I'll click save. You can hit the preview button. You can play around with that, but it's something that our users had asked for. So it really is a very, very helpful tool. Now in here too, you're going to put in whatever your signing fee was. Again, this was imported directly from that particular order. You can put in a tracking number. If you do put in a tracking number here, you can actually click on the tracking number, and it will open up like FedEx or whoever it was, and it will you'll be able to actually track it real time. So another nice little benefit there. So now once I hit save though, that signing is now going to be inside of Notary Gadget. And if you'll notice, just like the home page, there are these little boxes that are over here on the side. And this is exactly what the what's designed to do is it's like a task list. So what it's going to do is it's going to say, hey, it's pulling up the all the tasks that I need to complete on here. So of course in this particular one, it has not been, the mileage has not been entered. Now this is an old signing. If you'll notice, the date was from 1/3/2024. That's why this balance due is showing in red here, but normally it would show in orange until you have to do everything. So another way that you can complete all of these tasks is I can just click on enter mileage. It's going to automatically calculate it. I could say, yep, I'm going to use the round trip, hit save, notarial acts. Yep, I did 5 acts during that, $10 each. I hit save. No signing expenses. This is gray. It's not something I need to do. It's just telling you that you haven't entered any other expenses for this. And whenever I get paid for the signing, I can just click on here and I can type in, you know, whatever it was. Let's just say that they paid via ACH and they paid $75, the full amount. I hit save. Now, when it does that, it's automatically recording that amount in my income received, which is, again, then going to show up on my profit and loss report, which is what I'm going to use for taxes. So in here, that was kind of the quick way. Now, normally it doesn't go through that fast, right? You get a signing and then you go to the signing afterwards, you do the miles, you do the notarial acts, and then sometime in the future you go in and you enter a payment. But that's the general gist of how you use the software. And there's all sorts of different options here. So if I did have to send an invoice, if you notice it said invoice not required. So there's some platforms where if we know that it comes in from SnapDocs or signing order, for example, and we know the customer doesn't require an invoice, we're going to automatically mark it as not required, so you don't even have to mess with it. And that's a setting that you can customize. So you can turn that on or off for a particular customer. So if you know, XYZ signing company doesn't want me to send them an invoice, then I can turn that alert off just for that customer, or I can turn it off globally altogether. Again, the software is super customizable to try to allow you to do things the way that you operate, not necessarily the way that we think you should operate. So I'm going to go through a couple of these buttons. We also have an electronic journal that is integrated with this. I won't go through that because that's kind of a separate topic altogether, but it is an additional option that you can purchase with Notary Gadget as part of the subscription. So for the states that do support electronic journals, we have that option. It's all built in mostly inside of the mobile app though. But the invoice, like if I needed to send an invoice, so this is, again, here it's showing the message that says, hey, this is not required because the signing management platform this customer uses does not usually require you to send an invoice. But again, something you can customize. But in here, you can see where this is the invoice that gets automatically generated. You can turn it into a PDF. You can actually email it straight from here. And what it will do is it'll actually connect to your email and it will automatically send the invoice from your email address through your email provider to the client. So, and that's part of the big email integration that we have inside of Notary Gadget. And I'm going to show you another feature here in a minute. But if I wanted to, I could hit send invoice and it would go ahead and send it. And then what it does, under the notes tab, it would actually create an entry here that say, hey, the signing has been, or this invoice has been sent. And it'll keep a copy of the invoice. So you have a nice log of everything that happens. So the mileage is the same thing that you had seen before. It's just, you can do it inside of the signing or you can do it from the icons. Notarial acts, same thing, just like we showed you before. Expenses. Now, if let's say that I had an expense, let's say that I had parking on this expense or on this particular signing, for example. So I could click the new expense button. I could come over here, click parking tolls. Let's say it was $5. Let's call it parking USA. I could put in notes if I wanted to. I can add a receipt if I want to. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And then it's going to automatically record that expense and tie it back to this particular signing. And that's, again, going to be used later on if we ever want to do an analysis on our customers to see how much we're actually making on a per signing basis for that particular customer. But that's how you record those. If I wanted to, I could print a summary of the signing and include an invoice. And what this will do is it gives me a little signing printout that I can take with me. So what a lot of users will do is they'll go for the day and they'll print out all of their signings that they have. So now you have this nice hard copy details for each signing. So you can look at them really quickly when you're going from one signing to the next with phone numbers and everything else in case you need to call the borrower, so on and so forth. And again, you're going to have the mobile app too. Almost 99% of the users are always going to have the mobile app installed on their phone too. So all this data is instantly available on your phone. You can just do one tap calling. You can even do one tap texting with your own little templates that you can text to and from your borrowers. and all that can be done from the mobile app. So you have that option. You can put a signing on hold, and putting a signing on hold is like when you get a call from the signing company or whomever, and you're like, well, the signings, that the paperwork or the docs aren't ready, so the signing's going to be on hold for a couple of days. You can mark it as on hold. You can mark it as canceled. You can mark something as uncollectible. So if you have a signing, you're not going to get paid for, you just mark it as uncollectible to get it off kind of your view. Now, here's something I really wanted to show you was the send email. So in here, and there's a whole how-to video that explains it. But basically what you can do is you can create your own email templates. So let's say, for example, you wanted to create a template to have a review go out to like a link to review you go out to a customer or something. You could create a template, and I could call the template name review. Customer review. And in here, I can say, I'm going to click the three little dots. I'm going to say I want it to go to signer 1 email and signer 2 email, assuming they have email addresses in there. And you could do the subject code, please review me. And I could put, please take a minute to give me a positive review on Google. Or whatever. I'm just kind of making this stuff up as I go. And then in here, I can say, yep, I want to include my signature. And I can say, oh, thank you very much. And as you can see here, you have all of these variables that if you click on it, will insert the variable in here. So if you want to insert things, and you can do everything from thank you emails to review me emails, or to whatever you want to do. It's completely customizable. So now when I save this, well, I'll do a preview real quick. So this is essentially what the email is going to look like when it goes out to your customer. And again, this is all going to get sent out through your own email address. So when they reply back to you, you're going to see it in your inbox. It's going to be in your sent items. It works just like the invoice email, that template as well. So if I hit save now, and if I want to hit the customer review template, it automatically fills in all of the information for me. So it pulls everything out. It pulled in the person's email address, and I could have put in other variables like their first name, so on and so forth. Just kind of giving you a demonstration, but you can see the power of it. It's very, very, very helpful. Again, it's automating all of these templates, so now you don't have to go and copy and paste and fill in and do all this. It just comes up, hit send email, and then you hit send email, and you're done. So you can do that now on any signing. So if I wanted to come in and I wanted to do it on this signing, I could say more, or hit send email, and I'm gonna do my customer review. Boom, fills everything in, hit send email. So it's really got a lot of great automation tools that go inside there. But anyway, that was kind of how you go through the process of entering and assigning and then filling everything out. So again, this is essentially like your giant to-do list. You're like, oh, okay, cool. I need to go in here and I need to enter in my mileage. Oh, all right, use my round trip mileage, hit save. Boom, that one's done. All right, put in my notarial acts. Yeah, I did 6 notarial acts in this one, hit save. And you just kind of keep working your way through the list until all of your to-do items are done. Now, another nice little feature you have is you can do combined invoices. So if you need to send in a combined invoice, some signing companies say, hey, I want, or title companies or whatever, say, I want an invoice for the entire month. You can create that. And if you want to enter in a bunch of payments at one time, you can do that. You can say, oh, hey, I got both of this payment was, or sorry, those are already paid for. So let's do, this one was 110 and this one was 100. 100, and they were both paid by ACH, and I could come in here and say, oh, the payment date was, the 1st. Hit save payments. Boom. Now those payments have both been entered in there. So you can do all of them at one time. And that will happen sometimes when you get a big ACH payment or a single check that's for multiple signings. It's really quick and really easy to enter that stuff in. But basically what you do is you're just working your way through the to-do list. Now, another cool feature that I don't have turned on here and is not by default because some of our users like it to use it, some of them don't, is you can actually turn on another alert called the appointment confirmed alert. So if I hit save here and I go back to the signings page, now I have a new alert that's in here. So for this signing that's upcoming tomorrow, I can come in here and I have now an alert to tell me whether or not I've confirmed the appointment. It might not seem like a big deal if you're not a very busy notary, but for those notaries, and once you've been doing this for a while and you get really busy, this becomes a big deal because you're trying to constantly track which appointments have been confirmed and which ones haven't. So with this option, you click on it and you have the option to say, has the appointment been confirmed? It is or not. If I say no, then, and it has a nice little, there were tons of video stuff all the way throughout the software. We always try to give you videos that kind of walk you through and give you tips and pointers and all of that stuff. But in here, I can instantly take a note and say, oh, here's my like standard notes. So like, oh, send a text message, and I can hit save. And even if you noticed when I'm inside of there, and it even tells you, all right, I had one attempt now for this particular appointment. And let's say I came in and again, and it still hasn't been confirmed, and I called, left no answer. Hit save. And now there's 2 attempts, and maybe you come in and you did it again. And now there's an option too where you can do send an email. Remember that those custom email templates we created? Here's a perfect example of one you can have that says this follow-up. Hey, I've been trying to reach you a couple of times. Please reply back and confirm I'll be there at such and such time. And again, in that new template, I can use their first name. I can do the signing date and time, the address, invoice number, so on and so forth. So again, just really, really try to automate those tedious things that you have to do that just take a lot of times. With Notary Gadget, it's going to automate so much of that. So now, if I wanted to, I could put in another one, say, left another voicemail, whatever, and it's going to time, if you notice, it'll time and date stamps everything in here. So now you got a nice log. So if you need to talk to the signing company or the escrow company, you can say, hey, I tried to call, I left a bunch of messages, so on and so forth. I can't get a hold of them, what have you. Now, once it's been confirmed, you just hit appointment's been confirmed. You can add a note if you want to. And now, if you'll notice, it goes gray because the appointment has been confirmed. So again, it's just going to keep you focused on the things that need to be done. Now, obviously, these here are all grayed out. You say, why are those all grayed out? Well, because the signing appointment already happened. So if it's already happened, then there's no need to confirm it because you already did it. So the system will always assume the signing's been completed once the appointment has passed. And you'll kind of as you start to use it, it'll all make a lot of sense. And there's tons of other stuff that you can do in here. You can search, you can export your signings, all sorts of that stuff. Now, I'm going to talk about 2 reports here. The first one is the profit and loss report. Like I said, this is probably the most important report that we have inside of here. And make sure once you sign up, you click on these links and you watch these videos, because this is a really big deal. A lot of people get confused about how a profit and loss report works. A real quick tip on that. The IRS, you don't report your income based on when you do a signing. You report your income based on when you actually get paid for it. And that's the income report. So people will say like, oh, I didn't, I had a bunch of signings this year. How come my, profit and loss report's showing 0? Well, because you didn't get paid for it until the following year. So it's always going to be based on when you actually get paid for something. Now, expenses are the opposite. The expenses get based on, like your mileage is based on when you actually drive. So it's not based on it's not based on when you get paid. And the same goes for like if you buy something in store, it's when you actually pay for it. So it's a little bit confusing sometimes for some new notaries or people who are not used to being self-employed, that sort of thing. But the big thing here, it's going to give you a list of all your signings, your income that you actually received, and then all of your expenses. And then also, again, remember this big deal that I talked about is recording your notarial acts. And what you're going to see here is this portion of net income from notary public fees. So it's going to tell you, hey, I had $150 that of my income was from notary fees. And then this is going to tell you the portion of it that was subject to self-employment tax. So if you'll notice, the portion that's subject is the total amount of profit you had minus the net income you had or minus the amount of income you had from your notarial acts. And it's even going to tell you how much you saved by using Notary Gadget. And it's so important. And all of this even gets printed out on your profit and loss. So you print it. You can include a detailed list of your transactions. It prints out a breakdown. And again, even shows this again for your accountant to remember, because this is a big deal. If your accountant doesn't report this, it's not going to save you a dime. It's always important that they understand how to do your taxes. And this is really important, especially if you go to like the tax prep offices that aren't actual CPAs. We always generally say avoid them. Either really cheap, but yes, you get what you pay for. So a CPA is going to have much more in-depth knowledge of the tax law, and usually is the ones that are going to be able to help you save the most amount of money and know to report those things. But here it's going to give you a breakdown of your transaction, detail. It even prints out a copy of your receipts, and this is all in a PDF that you can then take and email to your accountant, save it, do whatever you need to do with it. So those are probably the most important one. The sales report is another big one. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to generate a sales report. Now here it's going to give me a breakdown of all the statistics of how much how many signings I've completed, how many are upcoming, how many I have unpaid, the total mileage expense that I have, what's my average profit with and without the mileage. A lot of people like to see, well, if I don't count my mileage, how much money did I make? What's my average days to getting paid? And then it's going to break down, like you can do total sales, total profit, with and without mileage. It's going to have your signings per month, the amount per month. Gives you a complete breakdown of every single customer, every single signing, everything that you did on it. Gives you averages, totals, the whole 9 yards. So it gives you a ton of data to help you analyze your business and analyze your customers. And then, like, for example, I can see right here, Awesome Signings is the one I'm doing the most amount of work for. So it really is a big deal, especially when you start looking at profit, because sometimes, hey, the amount of profit you made on one company is a lot more than the other one, even though you did less signings for them. So just a great analysis tool for those of you who really want to sit down and try to make your business better and try to earn more money and that sort of thing. So without further ado, I hope you enjoyed the short little demonstration here, and then we'll probably open it up for questions thereafter.
Thank you, Steve. That was amazing.
Well, thank you. It's long, and that's the hard part. It's so hard to cover because there's so many different things that it does. So yeah, thanks for sitting through it. And actually, even as I look at it, there's actually quite a few things that we've changed, because this demo is about a year old. So I was looking there, I was like, oh, that's right. So we added, one of the things is we talked about the alerts where you could add the appointment confirmed alert. We added another one for tracking whether you've sent in your fax backs and whether or not they've been approved. So for those signings where you have to do that, so that's been a big one that a lot of people have asked us for. That, and the mileage calculator is actually totally different now. Now you can go in, and when you do it, you can set up your own favorites. So if a lot of times you'll go back home and do whatever, send in your faxes, and then you have to go to the to like FedEx to do your drop, or even just going to FedEx to drop on the way out, right? You want to obviously record that mileage. Well, now you can set up those locations as favorites, and then you can create a custom route, and it'll automatically calculate the mileage for it, and a bunch of other stuff like that. We've just refined a lot of the things that are available in there.
Awesome. That's good to know. I knew you were doing some new stuff this year, but my goodness.
Yeah, there's more coming too. A few months out, but there's a bunch of good stuff coming.
Okay, we do have some people who have had their hands up in the gallery for quite some time. Their arms have to be excruciatingly tired. Yeah, Nell, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
This is actually back to the Miss Samantha, was for the expenses with Facebook in particular. I know that there are some items that you purchase via Facebook, and you can't really get a receipt or anything like that. So how would you, for Miss Samantha, get that information for your tax purposes? And how would you file it correctly?
Yeah, so do you mean like advertising on Facebook?
No, for example, if you've purchased some office supplies or things like that.
So I would personally pay with a card or Venmo or something to track it. And then I would also maybe do like a screenshot of the item listed on Facebook Marketplace, and I would attach that to it. If all else fails, put really good notes into the description when you put it into your software, your bookkeeping software.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Good question you have now. Miss Brenda, up next. Go ahead and unmute and tell us what's on your mind.
I think I have a question for Amy. Is she here?
She was. Let me double check.
She's no longer here tonight.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe Beth can answer it in a generic way. I had a jurat, a client, it was a Ron, but the client had his document declined by the receiver because the receiver could not read the notary's seal. He wanted me to reseal it. And I said, well, I can't seal somebody else's document. And he said, well, I'll sign it again. I said, but it's a jurat. Do you have another document? I can do another one. Can someone re-sign the same document, and specifically a jurat, and have it notarized with a loose certificate? I don't think you can, but I want a professional's
Miss
advice.
Well, you wouldn't want to leave that you wouldn't be able to disable that other notary's certificate. That's illegal.
Exactly.
You can't touch somebody else's certificate. And in order to attach a loose certificate, Brenda, you have to indicate that you're not using the certificate that came with the document. So my advice would be to tell your signer to go back to that original notary or get a new document.
Okay. And that's what I felt, but I was like, maybe there is a workaround that I just don't know. But
well, I also want to make sure we're clear, Miss Brenda, you're talking about Ron, right? A remote
correct.
authorization. Yeah, once that Ron's been completed, you can't break those documents. You can't do anything. You know, as a paper notary, we can go back and make some corrections. However, when that PDF is being tracked for the entire time that it's going through that Ron platform, you can't re-upload that document and make corrections to it. You have to kind of start the process over again. So when it comes to Ron, there's like a whole like key coding that goes through those documents. I would very much recommend that you just start over the process.
Okay, that's where I was at, but I just wanted to make sure. Thank you both. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Total lock document for Ron, you betcha. Sorry,
we have one. Sorry about that. We have one question from our YouTube because we did this on YouTube Live as well. We have one question that I really want to know myself, and it's kind of related to Ron. This is for Mr. Steve. It says, if the majority of your work is for Ron, is there a setting that you can choose to separate those mobile signings from the remote online notary signings?
When you say a setting, like, let me ask, like, is there a reason when you say separate it, are you talking about separating it in terms of like income or like?
Well, I'm gonna say that, you know, there's no mileage, no printing, you know, all of those costs that would come along with a signing. So I think they're wondering, could they separate out the remote online notary signings?
Yeah, when you first put in a signing, there's you might not have seen it because I was kind of flying through the demo. But there's an option there that says this is a remote online signing, and you click it and it automatically disables the mileage stuff for it because you know you don't have any miles that go along with it. So that's the way. It doesn't really like separate them out, but it just alleviates that extra work because obviously you don't have an address either, right? If you're not if it's going to be a Ron signing because it's remote. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now had another question in the chat, Steve, pertaining to that. Is there a place to record platform fees? That literally is an expense though, but
right, you just put it on, yeah. So that's why the categories that we set you up with, that's why I say they're like a basic set of categories, right? So everybody's going to be a little bit different. Some people against my better advice, and I'm sure Samantha would back me up on this one, is, you know, I've seen people go in there and I'm like, oh my God, you got like 50 categories. Like, how can you possibly remember what you're putting in each category, right? So that's why we give you those basic set, but you can customize them to whatever. But I always say, keep it simple, because trying to come back and remember where you put an expense when you have 40 or 50 categories is near impossible, right? Unless you have, you know, super memory, but I don't think most of us do.
Honestly, I'll jump in there from a tax standpoint. If you just Google IRS Schedule C, that is the form we're filling out with your expenses. There's like, I don't know, like 25, 24 categories. So you should be trying to align for the most part to that Schedule C so that we know where to plop it in. There is another category, but you're just calling attention to specific things for that, because the IRS can actually read what you're saying you're using as opposed to it fitting in the categories that they expect you to use.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Nancy, you want to unmute and ask your question? If you're talking, Nancy, we can't hear you. You're not muted.
Yeah, never mind, I'm sorry.
There you go.
So my question is for Steve. Long-term gadget user. I didn't know about all those features that just went, and I'm excited. I'm gonna go set them all up. But
Cool.
and I've looked at others, obviously, and you're ahead above the rest. Did you say that I can put income in there they are kind of notary related, but they're commission checks, and I'm like trying to figure out how to on an Excel spreadsheet so I can send it to my accountant. I can put that on there.
If it's for a separate type of work, I would advise against it because usually you want to keep that stuff separate. Correct me if I'm wrong, Samantha, right? Wouldn't you want to, you'd want to keep that separate if it's for a separate, especially if it's for like a separate LLC or something, then you definitely have to keep it separate.
Well,
But
no,
if it's-
they're paid in my name, but they're
Okay.
not closings.
Oh, then yeah, you should be able to record them there because you're reporting under the same Schedule C, right, Samantha?
Yes.
But it depends how your business is set up. So like everybody tries to fight with me that I can't do what I do because I am a notary and a signing agent and a tax preparer and apostilles and legal document preparation. That all falls under my business, the paperwork and errand lady. So that's how I have set up my business. That's how my insurance reads, that I provide all those services. A lot of CPAs will advise against it. I just chose to fight against the mold because I don't want to run 4 different businesses. I want to run one business that does everything. So it's going to depend on how you set it up. You want to see your tax person, are they doing multiple Schedule Cs or one Schedule C? If it's one Schedule C, you keep it all together.
Okay, so I can just go on Gadget and set up a thing that just says commission or?
Yeah, you can set up a category. Yep, just do a new category and then you can pick it whether it's an income or an expense. In this case, it'd be income. And then you just put in their commission or whatever.
Guys,
you wanna call it.
I just want to chime in on this one because I feel like I know a little bit about Nancy's situation. So Nancy, are you asking about particularly like anything you're doing like related to notary services, or are you talking about your commission checks as a sales representative?
As a sales rep.
So she's actually a Nancy Flachet, outside of being a notary star, is also an account rep for our Unlimited Ink Notary, my signing service. So we pay her a commission for any clients that she brings in to Unlimited Ink. She gets a commission off of every single file. So that's why I wanted to bring that up. Is she could just set that up as like income for her notary business because it is related to her notary
Because
business.
it's still her notary business, right? It doesn't matter how you get it. It's just as long as, that's why I said if it's a separate LLC or something, then it's totally different because they're 2 separate companies. You can't commingle the books. But
Right,
if
no, it's all coming in
if
together.
it's just coming to you personally and you're getting 1099 personally, and it's Samantha, again, you can chime in if you want, but in that case, then it doesn't matter because like, just like Samantha said, you can just file, like, it's just gonna get all lumped together under income. It doesn't matter as long as it's actually going, you're the one getting 1099 because that's how it's getting reported to the IRS, right? So if they had reported the income to an LLC, that would be totally different because you're claiming under one location and it's supposed to go to another one. So, but
Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
Yeah.
God, that saves me so much aggravation.
And it sounds like a referral fee. You might even want to talk to your CPA further because it may be that that income is not subject to self-employment tax. But you need to discuss that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I have one more thing for you, Steve. I'm having issues when I import work from specifically signing order. It's not putting in everything. It gives me the last name, the date, and who it came from.
Send an email to support, or just go on through your account and file, like click the help icon, or you can just send an email to support at Notary Gadget and just put it in there, and then we'll pull the logs and we can see what's happening in there.
Okay, all right, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, Miss Beth, before we keep going, guys, I just want to let you guys know we have gone 30 minutes over tonight, which means we have to draw the line somewhere. We love all of you. We want all of your questions to be answered. But if you have questions for Samantha or you have questions for Steve, we have been posting their information in the chat all night long. Kirsten, if you could facilitate getting them in there one more time while I start to bring this to a close tonight, I wish we could get every question, but we would be here all night. And you know, you guys came for question and answer. We are now about half the audience that we started with, which means people are falling off, falling asleep, and we will just keep dwindling into the night. This is not a one-day fix. So I'm going to say it the way that I say it. First of all, let me say thank you to Miss Samantha for coming back. This is, I think, your third or fourth time here. Mr. Steve, I think this is also your third or fourth time here. We love you guys. You guys are very much a part of our community, and we appreciate everything that you do for our community. I'm going to say it the way that I say it, and then I'm going to let Miss Beth take us home. If you are not naked, we have guests in the house. Please turn on those cameras and let's start giving our signature wave to Miss Samantha and Mr. Steve. Thank them for being here tonight. I want to see all those hands waving as I scroll through. And Miss Beth, how do we really say it here at Notary Stars?
Well, I'm going to go back to the old school way here as well. It's been an amazing session to see that we've been brave enough to discover that no matter where we come from, no matter how we got here, we're all in the same storm. Not everyone's in the same boat. Some of us have yachts, some of us have canoes, and some of us are dog paddling. So just remember to reach back and help the next notary to you, grab a hand, and bring them along with you on your journey. Good night, guys.
Well said. Well said. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. You guys come back often.
Yeah, would love to. I'll send you an email and we'll get some of the new stuff that actually was a bunch after seeing the video. I was like, oh, we changed that. So maybe we'll do another one. I could show you guys some of the new stuff. And that'll be a quick one. It'll be like, hey, what's new or something like that.
Perfect.
So, let's do it.